Now let us see how Angular works. Your application in your favorite editor, you cannot directly run the index.html file into the browser. That will not show expected output into the browser that you want to see. So you would want to build your application in order to run it into the browser, because browser then now cannot identify the main.ts file or any ts file that you have added inside your application, right? So in order to build your application, you need Angular CLI. That I have already mentioned in the previous lectures. So Angular CLI is there to build your application. So in the package.json we have the scripts, right? For example, these scripts. So in order to run into your browser, or in order to start your development server from the browser, you need to go ahead into your terminal and run the command, right? The command is added over here, for example the start command or build command. For our purpose, we want to see whatever we have developed inside the browser, so we'll start with the npm start, which is the ngserve command. So now when I type ngserve or npm start over here, it will go ahead and start my application, right? So in order to start my application, this application needs to be built right inside. For example, the ts files should be converted into the js files, right? So how does this work? So Angular CLI first of all goes to the angular.json file, right? So here I have run the command, the start, that is the ngserve command, right? So it goes to the angular.json file and checks where the ngserve command is. So this is the where the serve command is happening, right? So inside the serve we have all these options, right? So Angular CLI goes through each of these options, okay, and that is inside our the build command, the build object, right? So it goes to this build object and it goes to our the serve, right? First of all it goes to serve and it checks all the configurations. So inside the build target, if you see, we have the build production, right? So it will go to the poster, that is our application, and go to the build. The build is right over here. It goes to this build object and gets the configuration of the production for the build target, right? And same for the development. If it goes to the development configuration right over here, and it checks all this configuration, right? And it starts building your application. Now let us see what is there inside the builder. So in the builder, that is mentioned at Angular build and dev server. So it will start the development server from your application, right? So let's see what is there inside the at Angular dev server. So if I go to the node modules in the at Angular package and the build, right, that is over mentioned over here. And if I go to the dev server, this is the dev server. Now if I go inside the builders, this is the dev server that is mentioned, and from here it goes to the builders, right? And from the builders it initializes your application and start building your application. But how will where is it happening? So that is happening over inside the application. So if you go to the application inside the build action, for example right over here, so if you see this run es build action is triggered from the ngserve or the build command, which is required for the production. So it will start building. If you see, when I just run the command, it shows up console over here that is building. So we can see that again if I close the development server with Control C. Now if you see, the building is written over here, that is the log, and that is mentioned over here. So it comes from this place, okay? So if you see the watch mode enabled, watching for file changes, all these are mentioned over here. So your application starts building from this place, and once your application builds, that means once your ts files and all the configurations are created to show into the browser, so it will host your application on this localhost colon 4200 server, okay? So now if I go to the angular.json again, now what to build, right? So we have all the configuration, but we didn't see what to build, right? So the thing is, it will first of all go to the browser option, right? This browser, that means the earlier it was main, but now the option has been changed with browser. So what is there in the browser? src/main.ts file, right? So this is the main application, as I have mentioned inside our previous lectures. This is the main file, the main entry file, from where the application builder starts to check your application, right? So let's see what is there inside the main.ts file. Now if I go to the main.ts file, the very first thing it is mentioned over here is this bootstrap application, right? That is imported from the platform browser. So Angular has the platform browser, that means the application that you have developed here should be run into the browser. So that's where we have the platform browser from the Angular. So it imports the bootstrap application and it uses this app component. What is the app over here? App is the root component, okay? The first component, the root component, as I mentioned in the previous lectures. This is your first component, the root component, from where all your nested components resides, right? So what is there inside the bootstrap application? If you see now, if I click on this bootstrap application, if you see right over root component, right? This is the root component that you want to see inside your browser. So now let's go to see what's there inside this app component. So if we go to the app component, so this app component is our TypeScript file. So the Angular CLI converts this into JavaScript with the selector. Remember the selector name over here, this is the app root selector. So this is the unique name given to this component. So every component inside your Angular has a unique name or unique selector, which can also be identified as an ID. So that selector name is right here, that is app.root. So now once the Angular CLI checks this main.ts and converts your Angular application into JavaScript bundle. So once your JavaScript bundle is created, now we have this Angular JavaScript bundle. Now the Angular CLI opens your application, but the application is opened from this index.html file that we already seen. So inside this index.html file, as you can see, this is the normal HTML syntax. So here inside this body, if you see, we have this app root, okay? So the app root is the same as in that we have seen inside this app component. So if you go to the app component, this is our app root, right? So this is the component that is triggered inside this index.html. So what Angular CLI does is that it first of all checks this app root, that is the element, the app root, right? So this element is being checked from this app component or the main JavaScript bundle that has been created by the Angular CLI. So this Angular CLI checks this app root, and the app root, that is the our app component, the main component, the root component, is shown into the browser. So the other configuration is also here, that is the app config. So if you go to the app config, which is located over here, app/app.config. So if you go to the app.config over here, there are certain imports and the function or the providers provided inside this app config. We have the providers array over here. We will see the provide zone chain detection and the provide routers in the later upcoming lectures. But what is this provide browser global error handler? First of all, Angular offers a mechanism for global error handling through its error handler class, and this function, which is shown over here, that is provide browser global error handlers. Angular's error handler class has a handle error method, right? That is invoked whenever an unhandled exception occurs within the Angular's application's execution context. By default, this handler typically logs the error to the browser's consoles. You can also create a custom error handler by implementing the error handler interface and overriding the handle error method. This function over here is a function available in the Angular core, provides an environment initializer that forwards unhandled browser errors. For example, window dot one error, or window dot on error, or window dot on unhandle rejection events. All these events or the browsers or browser handler errors are logged into this error handler class. This ensures that error originating outside the Angular's direct control but still occurring within the browser environment are also captured and handled by the Angular application's global error handler. Now that we have seen that how the Angular works and how the application is build is created and the index.html is picked, let's see what is there inside this URL. So if I copy this URL, you can also directly click on that URL, and if I go into my browser, the URL over here, you can see the application running, and you can see also whatever is there inside this the Angular content. Right now, if I go to right click over here and go to the view page source, you would see the same index.html content that is we have seen inside our editor right over here. Right, if you see the app.read, the only thing that has been added by the Angular CLI is this script src, right, and this script, the name main.js file. Right, this main.js file is the JavaScript bundle that has been created from this Angular CLI. So that was all about today's lecture. In our next lecture, we will create our first Angular component.